Kalaari Capital's latest CXXO State of the Female Entrepreneurship in India report says that between January 2022 and October this year, only 16% of all the capital raised was allocated to startups with women co-founders. Just 8% of the startups are now led by female CEOs. Adds that startups co-founded by women consistently receive smaller check sizes, approximately half the average received by their male-led ventures. A separate report by Kalaari, which is the India Alpha report, also adds India is poised to become a $7.5 trillion economy by 2030, and that India's startups will drive about $100 billion plus of that GDP growth. For more on the findings of both these reports, I have with me Vani Kola, the MD of Kalaari Capital. Vani, thanks very much for your time here on CNBC-TV18. Let's start with that, surprising highlight. Only 16% of all the capital going to women-led startups. What actionable strategies can the ecosystem adopt to close this funding gap more quickly?
I think like the CXXO summit, no ceiling summit we did yesterday, to inspire more women to be able to engage in entrepreneurship. So awareness and inspiration is very important to kind of improve the funnel, right? And then after that, number two, we need conversations on where are the biases to not have such access to funding to women. And I think that's something all investment firms must reflect, internally engage to improve their deal flow and improve their commitment to fund women, even if it is at a seed capital, which is what we have done with the CXXO fund. And obviously, Kalaari isn't the only one doing it, but as each of us collectively engage in increasing the funnel by improving awareness and by committing to fund and mentor, I think that's the way we accelerate and create this compounding of women entrepreneurship. Lastly, I think we have to do more, which I know CNBC is doing, Kalaari is doing, many others are doing, is to create that networks and opportunity, which is a shortcoming for a lot of women because investors tend to meet people from their known pools and source founders from that. So we have to kind of increase that network density for women entrepreneurs.
Well, yes, a lot more needs to be done, but the report also says only 13% of active angel investors in India are women, just 6% hold leadership positions in VC firms. Tell our viewers how important it is to bring more women into decision-making rules, and what are you at Kalaari doing to address this?
So we start from our fellowship program, where purposefully we try to increase the cohort at the entry level of the firm, because you can't create women in leadership without actually solving the problem at the entry level. And so very deliberately, I think we focus and invite women to consider a career in a venture capital firm. Today, the problem of having too few women in senior investment leadership role comes from the fact that in this nascent industry, which is a decade and a half, but still is a nascent industry, there haven't been enough women that have come in at the entry level and have grown from that into senior leadership roles. So I think just creating that role modeling, commending that, and increasing the pool of women that come into investment roles, I think is very, very important. And that's something we should all think about. How many analysts, associates, principals do we have before we talk about how many general partners and managing directors we have? And for angels also, I think there are a lot of women in financial services, but in the private investment space of angel, we don't see that happening. And I think that's also because angel pooling networks to be able to invest into technology, that those platforms are sorely missing.
Well, Vani, let's also talk about the positive coming from the report, the 1.41 times growth in female-led startups from Tier 2 and beyond cities. What are the critical drivers behind this trend you're seeing, and how can policy and private initiatives accelerate it further?
Yeah, Ritu, that was also surprising positively for me also. And I can't claim that I know all the reasons why that is. We have the data, which is actually great. And I wonder if it is because today business has become more democratized, right? We have hybrid work, we have e-commerce platforms, we have UPI, we have many things. And then also the rise in India consumer consumption and the rise of sort of digital brands, I think are some of the factors to why your location doesn't become a hindrance for you to be in business. So, and in fact, I think this is an early lead indicator of the entrepreneurship potential of Bharat, so to speak, because we have talked about 4 or 5 metros all the time where the pockets of entrepreneurship exist. But I think what we all can unlock and is anyway going to get unlocked with or without us is what is going to come out of tier 2. So I think over the next decade, we'll see more of our unicorns, more of the founder leadership, more of the female founders also emerge from tier 2 cities. And we have to sort of not assume they will come to Bangalore. I think I'm in Bangalore, but that we have to go there and create, access and networks to find them and invest in them.
Well, yes, the Bharat opportunity we keep talking about here. But Vani, let's talk about your other report, the India Alpha report that says India will be a $7.5 trillion economy by 2030, 30 trillion by 2047, and startups will contribute $100 billion. What are the key reforms or investments from a startup point of view that are essential to achieve these kind of milestones?
There is a role to do in creating that incubation of funds itself, which I think we need to continue and accelerate from what the policy and the government can do. And from a policy perspective, I think, enabling investment into the country as a active encouragement, I think is important. And IBCA and others provide that bridge, but there is always things that come up as a bit of a surprise. And I think in, from gray zones of regulation, and the gray zone is usually a bit of a challenge. So I think creating more engagement in policy making and industry to continue to accelerate the thriving of this community, I think is very important. I also think that providing funding mechanisms thoughtfully to create more inclusivity, which I think some of the state funds are already doing. I think we have to create pockets of excellence and incubate and develop that, whether it's deep tech, whether it's agri-tech and so on and so forth, because the opportunity for India is not just to build for India, but to build for the world.
Well, Vani, also this shift that your report talks about, building for Bharat to building for the world from Bharat. What are the sectors and innovations that shine in this area?
I do think that there is a unique opportunity in a moment in time, and India has always looked at manufacturing as a sector, but we haven't led it. And in order to create more economic equity, we have to kind of be able to do that. I think we have a moment in history that we can do it, and I see early signs of investment and commitment to build that. And coming to technology, I think what we will see over the next decade, I always think Apple iPhone was introduced in 2007. That wasn't that long ago, and it radically changed social demographics of how we live, how we eat, how we engage, how we entertain. And I think we know that a even more rapid aspect of that, social change is going to happen because of hardware, because of AI, because of space technologies. The confluence of all those three in what it does from compute, data processing, and real-time engagement of our lifestyles will change in the next decade dramatically in ways that today we can't fully predict. But what we can do is truly engage in it.
Well, thanks for sharing those insights, Vani. But before we let you go, quick word on the trends that you see shaping up in early stage investments in 2025, the sectors or the themes that look promising, the kind of exits Kalaari has in the pipeline, and how much capital you're looking to deploy.
2025 will be a continued validation of private equity investment, creating extraordinary returns as an asset class, right? So far, we know what the public markets can do, and India is largely familiar. But I think the private markets which have always been a bit of a black box. But I think we are seeing a lot more companies go IPO. I expect next year for venture funded companies to be a phenomenal year from going public, and that and the validation of that long illiquid investment cycle will drive more capital into venture capital. In fact, more domestic capital, which I think is always a healthy sign. So I see that happening in 2025 and beyond. And I see many more companies aspiring in the India to global space, which is technology and SaaS, and also consumer trending in India from consumer brand and commerce enablement, the digital commerce enablement. I see tremendous innovation happening, and I hope we get to solving sectors like healthcare and edtech, which have been start-stop from really providing technology advantages. But whether it happens in 25 or beyond, I think those are hard problems that is ahead of us to crack, and only through technology we can truly solve for it.
Well, Vani, thanks very much for your time here on CNBC-TV18. It's always a pleasure. On that note, we're going to wrap up this edition of Startup Street. Thanks very much for watching, but stay with us. More news and updates will come up on the other side.